There is a greater value on the economic partnership with China than concerns about the security threat, and I'll table that for the committee. That is an objective of the CCP, that Western democracies will go to sleep on the threat.
Former Prime Minister Scott Morrison has given testimony to a US congressional committee, which only serves to highlight the growing difference between the Labor Party and the Liberal Party's approach to China. Morrison's testimony came only days after the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese had a 6-day visit to China, which helped to reset the relationship further after the acrimony between China and the Turnbull and Morrison governments between 2018 and 2022. But Scott Morrison, in his message to Congress, said, beware. He said, China is effectively a wolf in sheep's clothing. He says the more gentle approach which China has had towards Australia under the Albanese government is not to be believed. He believes that Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, is still pursuing the same sort of hegemonic aims in the region as he was previously, and that China is not a cuddly panda, effectively is what he was saying.
The CCP fundamentally has a problem with representative democracies, and there are some irreconcilable differences between an authoritarian regime in China, as much as an authoritarian regime in Russia or Iran, for that matter.
He said that he was proud of the resistance that his government showed during his time in office. Of course, during the Turnbull and Morrison administrations, Australia had a major falling out with China over the banning of Huawei, the introduction of foreign interference laws, and the call for an inquiry into the origins of COVID. China reacted by placing some $20 billion in trade sanctions on Australia. At the time, China was going through what they call the wolf warrior phase, very aggressive towards countries like Australia, especially Australia though, because it wanted to try and send a message to the United States not to be tough with China.
The Australian government welcomes progress on cooperation under the China-Australia Free Trade Agreement, which has its 10th anniversary year. As a direct result, trade is now flowing freely to the benefit of both countries and to people and businesses.
That didn't work. Australia did not take a backward step under the Turnbull or the Morrison administrations. And so when the Albanese government came in, Xi Jinping decided to end the wolf warrior era, if you like, and try and reset the relationship with Australia, which he has done. China has now removed the $20 billion in trade sanctions, and there is a warmer relationship with the Labor government than there was under the Liberal governments, and that has proceeded during the visit in China, which we just saw.
My government's approach to our relationship with China is patient, is calibrated and is deliberate. And it is aimed at cooperating wherever we can, disagreeing where we must, but engaging in our national interest.
However, Scott Morrison has said, look, the bottom line here is that militarily China's doing exactly what it did before. It occasionally confronts Australian military assets in the region. It has live fire exercises off the coast of Australia. It is still trying to win the hearts and minds of Pacific Island nations in the hopes of creating a military base there. He said we really need to be careful not to cozy up to China. Now this is the Liberal Party still backs Morrison's view of China, and really it is a fundamental contradiction for Australia, which is always a problem, and that is that China is our biggest trading partner, hugely important for our economy. It's also seen as the greatest potential threat. And what we've seen in Scott Morrison's testimony to the Congress and Anthony Albanese's visit to China is the growing difference between the two major parties in Australia of exactly what interpretation we should give to today's China.